Captain Jake Morrison stood in the control room of Earth Defense Station Alpha, staring at the screens that showed space around Earth. The coffee in his hand had gone cold hours ago, but he didn't notice. His eyes were fixed on the massive shapes, moving toward their solar system. "Sir, the objects are still coming closer," said Lieutenant Amy Collins from her station. Her voice was tight with worry. "They're huge. Each one is about the size of a city." Jake set down his coffee cup and walked closer to the main screen. 15 enormous ships crawled through space toward Earth. They moved slowly like wounded animals limping home. Dark scars covered their metal sides, and strange patches had been welded over holes in their hulls. "Any word from Admiral Crawford?" Jake asked. "She's on her way up from Earth," Amy replied. "Should be here in 20 minutes. Jake nodded and kept watching the ships. In his 30 years with Earth Defense, he had never seen anything like them. The ships were clearly alien, but they looked desperate. Some of them trailed debris behind them like blood from a wound dot. The communications officer, a young man named Pete Hughes, suddenly straightened at his station. "Captain, we're getting a transmission from the lead ship." "Put it through," Jake ordered. The main screen flickered and changed. Instead of showing the approaching ships, it now showed the inside of what looked like an alien control room. Strange beings filled the screen. Some looked like living crystals that reflected light in rainbow patterns. Others appeared to be made of flowing water that held a human shape. The crystal being in the center of the screen began to speak. The words came out in a musical tone that somehow translated into English through their computers. "People of Earth," the crystal being said, "we are refugees from across the galaxy. We seek sanctuary in your system. We have nowhere else to go." Jake felt his heart skip a beat. "Refugees? From across the galaxy?" Another voice joined in, this one sounding like waves on a beach. It came from one of the water-like beings. "We are the last of our kinds. The Galactic Consortium has cast us out. They say we are not worthy to exist alongside the pure races." A third voice buzzed like insects, though Jake couldn't see who was speaking. "We bring no weapons against you. We seek only a place to live in peace." The crystal being continued, "I am Veltar of the Zephyrians. With me are the Meridians, the Kythera, the Luminals, and the Verdani. We are all that remains of once great civilizations." Jake looked around the control room. His crew stared at the screen with wide eyes. No one knew what to say. "Why Earth?" Jake finally asked. "Why come here?" Veltar's crystal form seemed to dim slightly. "Because the consortium believes humans are too primitive to be a threat. They ignore your world. It is the only place in the galaxy where we might find safety." Before Jake could respond, Admiral Lisa Crawford's voice came over the intercom. "This is Admiral Crawford. I'm boarding the station now. Do not respond to the transmission until I arrive." The screen went dark as the aliens ended their communication. 20 minutes later, Admiral Crawford stood in the same spot Jake had occupied, studying the alien ships through the large viewing window. She was a tall woman with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much of war. Behind her stood Jake, Amy, Pete, and Dr. Alex Bennett, Earth's top expert on alien life. "What do we know about these consortium people?" she asked Dr. Bennett. Dr. Bennett adjusted his glasses and looked at his tablet. "Very little, Admiral. We've picked up some long-range radio signals over the years, but we always assumed they were natural phenomena. It seems we were wrong." "Admiral," Crawford nodded slowly. "And these refugees?" "From what I can tell from their transmission, they represent 5 different alien species. Each one seems to be the survivor of some kind of persecution." "Persecution?" Admiral Crawford turned to look at him. "The crystal being, Veltar, mentioned something about pure races. It sounds like this consortium has been removing species they consider inferior." Admiral Crawford was quiet for a long moment. Through the window, the alien ships continued their slow approach to Earth. "Open a channel," she finally said. Pete Quota's hands flew over his controls. "Channel open, Admiral." The screen flickered back to life, showing the same alien control room as before. Veltar and the other beings waited patiently. "This is Admiral Lisa Crawford of Earth Defense Command," she said in a clear, strong voice. We received your message. Can you tell us more about your situation? Veltar's crystal form brightened. Admiral Crawford, we are grateful you will speak with us. We are the survivors of a great purge. The Galactic Consortium has spent the last 100 years removing any species they deem unworthy of galactic civilization. A new voice joined the conversation. This one sounded like wind through leaves. I am Sylvan of the Verdani. Our crime was being plant-based life forms. The consortium said we were too primitive because we gain energy from sunlight. The watery voice spoke again. I am Aqualin of the Meridians. We were cast out because we refused to abandon our ocean worlds. The consortium wanted to drain them for resources. The insect-like buzzing returned. I am Chitnex, Queen Mind of the Kithera. We were condemned because our thoughts are shared among all our people. The consortium fears our unity. A final voice joined them, sounding like electricity crackling through the air. I am Lumara of the Luminals. We are beings of pure energy. The consortium cast us out because our bodies change and they cannot control us. Admiral Crawford listened to each voice carefully. When they finished, she asked, How many of you are there? In total, we number about 50,000 souls across all 5 species. Veltar replied, We are all that remains of billions. Dr. Bennett stepped forward. Admiral, if I may, these beings represent an incredible opportunity for scientific advancement. Think of what we could learn from them. Admiral Crawford held up a hand to quiet him. What do you need from us? She asked the aliens. Only shelter, Aqualin said. We have technology that might benefit your people, but we ask for nothing more than a place to exist. And if we refuse? The alien control room fell silent. Finally, Veltar spoke in a voice full of sadness. Then we will continue into deep space and await the end. There is nowhere else in the galaxy that will accept us. Admiral Crawford turned away from the screen and walked to the window. Earth hung below them, blue and green and beautiful. She thought about the billions of humans living their lives down there, unaware that refugees from across the galaxy were asking for help. She thought about Earth's history. How many times had people fled to new lands seeking safety from persecution? How many times had Americans welcomed those who had nowhere else to go? She turned back to the screen. You may approach Earth. We will establish communication protocols and begin discussing terms for your settlement in our system. The aliens on the screen seemed to glow brighter. Veltar spoke for all of them. Admiral Crawford, you have given us something we thought was lost forever. You have given us hope. Don't thank me yet, Admiral Crawford replied. This decision will have to be approved by Earth's Global Council, but as long as you come in peace, you will be treated with respect. After the transmission ended, Jake looked at his admiral. Do you think the council will approve this? Admiral Crawford smiled for the first time that day. Jake, America was built by people who had been cast out from their homelands. I think they'll understand. She looked back at the approaching ships. Besides, something tells me we're going to need all the friends we can get. If this consortium is as powerful as these refugees say, we might be next on their list. The alien ships continued their slow journey toward Earth, carrying the last hope of 5 civilizations and the seeds of something that might change the galaxy forever. 6 months had passed since the alien ships arrived at Earth. Dr. Lisa Park stood on the beach in Florida, watching something she never thought she would see. Meridian children played in the shallow water, their bodies flowing like liquid silver as they chased small fish. Their laughter sounded like gentle waves breaking on rocks. Amazing, isn't it? Said Tom Bradley, the chief engineer for the Meridian Habitat Project. He wiped sweat from his forehead as he watched the construction crews finish the underwater city. 3 months ago, this was just empty ocean. Now it's home to 5,000 Meridians. Lisa nodded. The underwater city stretched out beneath the clear blue water like a coral reef made of metal and glass. The Meridians had worked with human engineers to build something that could house their water-based bodies while allowing them to interact with air-breathing humans. How are the other projects going? Lisa asked. Tom pulled out his tablet and scrolled through the reports. The Zephyrian crystal gardens in the Sahara are ahead of schedule. Turns out their crystal technology works even better in the desert. Heat. The Kithra have dug their hive cities deep into the Appalachian Mountains. The Queen says they'll be ready to house the rest of their people by next month. And the others? The luminals are settled in their Arctic facility. The cold helps stabilize their energy forms, and the Verdani... Tom smiled and pointed toward the horizon. Well, you can see their work from here. Lisa looked where he was pointing. In the distance, she could see the tops of enormous trees that hadn't been there 6 months ago. The Verdani had planted their forest cities in the Amazon, and the trees grew faster than anything humans had ever seen. "Dr. Park," came a voice behind them. Lisa turned to see Jenny Miller, a young engineer who had been working with the alien technologies. Jenny's eyes were bright with excitement. "What is it, Jenny?" "You need to see this. We've had a breakthrough." Jenny held up a small device that looked like a crystal cube with wires running through it. "This is a fusion reactor that combines human engineering with Zephyrian crystal technology and luminal energy control." Tom leaned in to look at the device. "How much power does it produce?" "Enough to power a city," Jenny said with a grin. "And it's completely clean. No radiation, no waste, nothing harmful at all." Lisa took the device carefully in her hands. It was warm to the touch and seemed to hum with inner energy. "This could change everything." "It already is," Jenny replied. "The Meridians shared their biomedicine with our doctors yesterday. They can now cure diseases we thought were impossible to treat. And the Kithara have been helping our computer scientists solve problems that would have taken us years to figure out." Dr. Lisa Park felt a surge of hope. When the aliens first arrived, many humans had been afraid. They worried about being replaced or overwhelmed by superior technology. But instead of competition, they were finding cooperation. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Roberts walked up the beach toward them, still wearing his military uniform despite the hot Florida sun. "Dr. Park, I need to speak with you." Lisa could tell from his serious expression that something important had happened. "What's wrong, Steve?" "It's not wrong exactly, it's just complicated." Steve looked out at the Meridian city under the water. "We've been running joint training exercises with the alien defense forces. Their technology is incredible, but that's not the issue." "What is the issue?" "They're teaching us things about warfare that we never knew. The Kithara can coordinate attacks using their shared minds. The Zephyrians can make their ships invisible by bending light around them. The luminals can overload enemy systems just by touching them." Tom frowned. "Isn't that good? If this consortium comes looking for them, we'll be ready." Steve nodded slowly. "That's just it. Our scouts have been picking up strange signals at the edge of the solar system. Long-range sensors show ships that don't match any human design." Lisa felt a chill despite the warm sun. "Consortium scouts?" "We think so. Admiral Crawford wants to meet with all the alien leaders tomorrow. We need to start preparing for the possibility that they've found us." That evening, Lisa found herself in the most unusual conference room she had ever seen. The meeting was held in the new Unity building, which had been designed to accommodate all 6 species. The room had sections filled with water for the Meridians, crystal formations for the Zephyrians, and special energy fields for the luminals. Admiral Crawford sat at a table that seemed to be made of living wood, a gift from the Verdani. Around her sat the leaders of each species, along with key human officials. "Let me be direct," Admiral Crawford began. "Our deep space monitors have detected ships approaching the outer edge of our solar system. They're still months away, but they're definitely not human." Veltar, the Zephyrian leader, dimmed noticeably. "The consortium has found us." Aquilin's watery form rippled with distress. "We should leave. We will not bring war to your peaceful world." "Absolutely not," said President Martha Collins, who had flown in from Washington for the meeting. "Earth doesn't abandon its friends at the first sign of trouble." Chitnex, the Kithra Queen mind, buzzed thoughtfully. "The consortium will not stop with us. Once they eliminate what they call genetic deviance, they will turn their attention to any world that sheltered us." Lumara's energy form crackled with anger. They believe only their definition of perfection should exist in the galaxy. They have destroyed countless worlds to enforce this belief. Sylvan, the Verdani Grovekeeper, spoke in her wind-like voice. What they do not understand is that strength comes from diversity, not from sameness. Dr. Alex Bennett leaned forward. Can you tell us more about their military capabilities? Veltar's crystal form began to glow as he accessed his memories. They have hundreds of worlds under their control. Their fleets number in the thousands of ships, but they have a weakness. What kind of weakness? Admiral Crawford asked. They have eliminated diversity from their own ranks. Each of their species has become specialized for one type of warfare. They are very good at what they do, but they cannot adapt when faced with something new. Commander Rick Foster, who had recently been promoted to head Earth's Tactical Planning Division, spoke up. What do you mean? Chitnex answered for Veltar. The hegemony species are excellent at direct assault but poor at defense. The Apex Collective uses only mechanical solutions and cannot adapt to biological warfare. The Dominarch Empire relies on energy weapons but has weak protection against physical attacks. But together, they cover each other's weaknesses. Admiral Crawford pointed out. Yes, agreed Aquilin, but they do not truly work together. They coordinate, but they do not merge their abilities as we have begun to do with humans. Jenny Miller, who had been quietly taking notes, suddenly looked up. What if that's our advantage? We're already creating hybrid technologies that none of our species could develop alone. Dr. Carol Adams, who had been documenting the technological exchange, nodded enthusiastically. Jenny's right. In just 6 months, we've created fusion reactors, bioadaptive medicine, quantum communication systems, and defensive technologies that represent true fusion of different approaches. Lieutenant Colonel Roberts smiled grimly. The consortium has spent centuries eliminating anything different. They've never faced an enemy that gets stronger through diversity instead of weaker. President Collins stood up. Then we need to accelerate our integration programs. How quickly can we train mixed crews for our ships? The first mixed crews are already training, Roberts replied. Human intuition combined with Kythera coordination, Zephyrian technology, Meridian adaptability, luminal energy control, and Verdani bioengineering. The results are beyond what any of us expected. Admiral Crawford looked around the room at humans and aliens working together. How long do we have? Veltar consulted with the other alien leaders before answering. Based on the sensor readings, perhaps 4 months before the consortium advanced ships reach Earth. 6 months before their main fleet arrives. Then we have 6 months to prove that diversity is stronger than purity, Admiral Crawford said. 6 months to show the galaxy that being different isn't a weakness to be eliminated, but a strength to be celebrated. Dr. Lisa Park felt the same hope she had experienced on the beach that morning, but now it was mixed with determination. The refugees had come to Earth seeking sanctuary, but they had brought something more valuable than they knew. They had brought the chance to show the galaxy a different way of thinking. As the meeting ended, and the various species began discussing detailed plans, Lisa realized that Earth was no longer just offering shelter to outcasts. They were building something new together, something that had never existed in the galaxy before. The consortium was coming. But they would not find the same helpless refugees they had scattered across the stars. They would find something they had never encountered. Unity built from diversity, strength drawn from difference, and the combined will of 6 species who had learned that together they were stronger than the sum of their parts. The alarm that woke Captain Danny Wilson at 3 in the morning was unlike any he had heard before. It was not the standard emergency signal from Earth Defense Command. This alarm meant only one thing. Unknown ships had entered the solar system. Danny rolled out of his bunk aboard the EDS Unity, Earth's newest battleship. The ship was a marvel of combined technology, built using human engineering, Zephyrian crystal matrices, Meridian bioadaptive hull plating, Kythera computational systems, luminal energy cores, and Verdani self-repair capabilities. It was the first of its kind, and Danny was proud to be its captain. "Report," he called out as he reached the bridge, still pulling on his uniform jacket. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Williams looked up from her station with worried eyes. A single ship appeared at the edge of the system 20 minutes ago. It's big, sir. Much bigger than the refugee ships that arrived last year. Danny looked at the main screen. The ship was sleek and menacing, with sharp angles and weapon ports along its sides. It looked nothing like the damaged refugee vessels that had limped into Earth space seeking help. Any communication from them? They've been broadcasting on all frequencies for the last 10 minutes, Sarah replied. Admiral Crawford wants all ship commanders to listen to the message. Put it through. The screen changed to show the interior of the alien ship. A tall, thin being with gray skin and cold black eyes stared directly into the camera. When it spoke, its voice was flat and emotionless. Primitive humans of the third planet. I am Ambassador General Thexvar of the Hegemony, speaking for the Galactic Consortium. We know you harbor genetic deviants within your system. These inferior species have been rightfully expelled from civilized space. Danny felt his jaw clench as he listened to the alien's words. You will surrender all deviant life forms to Consortium custody within 10 standard planetary rotations. Failure to comply will result in corrective action against your world. You are a primitive species and cannot understand the importance of genetic and cultural purity in maintaining galactic civilization. The transmission showed images of destroyed worlds, their surfaces burned black from space. Cities that had been turned to glass, oceans that had been boiled away. These worlds chose to harbor genetic refuse. Thexvar continued. They learned the price of defying Consortium law. Do not make the same mistake. Surrender the deviants and your primitive civilization will be allowed to continue its existence. The transmission ended, leaving the Bridge of the Unity in stunned silence. 10 days, Danny said quietly. They're giving us 10 days to hand over our friends or they'll destroy Earth. Sarah's hands moved over her controls as she opened a channel to Earth Defense Command. Admiral Crawford wants all senior officers in the main briefing room in 1 hour. An hour later, Danny sat in the briefing room aboard the orbital command station, surrounded by human and alien commanders. The room buzzed with quiet conversation, in multiple languages, some of which sounded like music, others like wind or flowing water. Admiral Crawford entered the room, and everyone fell silent. Behind her walked President Martha Collins, who had arrived from Earth just minutes before. You've all heard the Consortium's ultimatum. Admiral Crawford began without any greeting. 10 days to surrender our alien residents or face what they call corrective action. Veltar, the Zephyrian leader, stood up. His crystal form was dimmer than usual, showing his distress. Admiral, we cannot allow Earth to be destroyed because of us. We will go with them. Sit down, President Collins said firmly. Earth doesn't negotiate with bullies whether they're human or alien. Aqualin's watery form rippled with emotion. President Collins, you do not understand the power of the Consortium. They have destroyed entire star systems. They have weapons that can crack planets like eggs. Then we'll have to make sure they don't get the chance to use them, said Commander Rick Foster, who now served as Earth's Chief Tactical Officer. Chit quote next comma, the Kithera Queen Mind, buzzed thoughtfully. The Consortium believes they face primitive humans and defeated refugees. They do not know what we have built together in the past year. Dr. Kevin Moore, Earth's military strategist, activated a holographic display showing the Consortium ship. Our analysis of their vessel shows advanced technology, but it follows predictable patterns. Their weapons, shields, and tactics all match what the refugees told us about Consortium methods. Lumara, her energy form crackling with controlled anger, spoke up. The Consortium has grown arrogant. They have conquered so many worlds that they no longer expect real resistance. Sylvan, the Verdani Grovekeeper, added her wind-like voice to the discussion. They have eliminated diversity from their own ranks. Each species in the Consortium has become specialized, like tools designed for one purpose only. Admiral Crawford nodded. That's what we're counting on. Dr. Moore, what do our scouts tell us about their fleet strength? Dr. Moore changed the holographic display to show the outer solar system. Long-range sensors detect approximately 50 ships massing beyond Pluto. That's more firepower than Earth has ever faced. but it's not their main fleet. Intelligence suggests this is just an advance force. 50 ships, Danny repeated, against our combined fleet of 35 vessels. But our ships are different, said Commander Janet Parker, captain of the EDS Liberation. Every vessel in our fleet uses hybrid technology. We can do things the consortium has never seen before. Lieutenant Amy Collins, now serving as a squadron leader, leaned forward. What about civilian evacuation, if this goes badly? President Collins shook her head. We're not evacuating. The refugee species chose to make Earth their home. Now, Earth chooses to defend that home with everything we have. Admiral Crawford stood and walked to the large viewing window that looked out at Earth. The blue and green planet turned slowly below them, peaceful and beautiful. The consortium sees Earth as a primitive world harboring genetic waste, she said. They think we'll hand over our friends to save ourselves. They're about to learn something about human nature. She turned back to face the room full of humans and aliens. We've spent the last year learning to work together, to combine our technologies and our ways of thinking. The consortium has spent centuries eliminating anyone who thinks differently than they do. Beltar's crystal form began to glow brighter. Admiral, what are you proposing? I'm proposing we show them the strength that comes from diversity. Every species in this room brings something unique to our defense. The consortium's pure species have never faced an enemy that combines 6 different approaches to warfare. Dr. Lisa Park, who had been documenting the integration process, spoke from her seat near the back. The fusion technologies we've developed shouldn't be possible according to consortium science. Their pure approach to research means they've never discovered what we've accomplished through cooperation. Commander Foster pulled up tactical displays on his tablet. Our battle plans use strategies that no single species could devise alone. Kythera coordination with human unpredictability, Zephyrian phase technology with luminal energy weapons, Meridian bioadaptability with Verdani self-repair systems. Danny felt a surge of confidence as he looked around the room. A year ago, these species had been refugees with nowhere to go. Now they were partners in something unprecedented in galactic history. What about their main fleet? Asked Captain Morrison, who now commanded the orbital defense platforms. Admiral Crawford's smile was grim but determined. If we can defeat this advance force, we send a message to the entire galaxy. We show them that diversity isn't weakness to be eliminated, but strength to be celebrated. President Collins stood up. Ladies, gentlemen, and honored friends from across the stars, Earth's answer to the consortium ultimatum is simple. We stand together or we fall together, but we will not abandon those who sought sanctuary among us. The room erupted in sounds of agreement from 6 different species. Human voices mixed with crystal chimes, water sounds, insect buzzing, energy crackling, and wind whispers. Admiral Crawford raised her hand for silence. All ships are to take defensive positions around Earth. Mixed crews, hybrid weapons, combined tactics. The consortium wants to see genetic purity in action. Instead, they're going to discover what happens when the galaxy's outcasts find a home. Worth fighting for. As the meeting ended and commanders rushed to their ships, Danny felt something he had never experienced before. It was not fear of the coming battle, though the consortium ships outnumbered them. It was not confidence in victory, though their hybrid technologies were impressive. It was the certainty that Earth had made the right choice. The refugees had not weakened humanity by their presence. They had made everyone stronger through their differences. Tomorrow, the galaxy would see what that strength could accomplish. The battle began at dawn on the 10th day. Captain Danny Wilson watched from the bridge of the EDS Unity as 50 consortium warships moved into attack formation near Mars. Their ships were perfect, moving in precise lines like a military parade. Each vessel was identical to the others in its class, built for maximum efficiency and deadly purpose. Enemy ships are taking bombardment positions, reported Lieutenant Commander Sarah Williams from her station. They're preparing to fire on Earth from long range. Danny looked at his mixed crew. Humans worked alongside Kythera at the tactical stations, while a luminal being helped control the ship's energy systems. A Meridian officer monitored the bioadaptive hull, and Zephyrian Crystals throughout the ship hummed with power. "All ships, this is Admiral Crawford," came the voice over the communication system. "Remember, they expect us to fight like separate species. Show them what unity can do. Begin phantom formation." Danny smiled as he gave the order. Phantom formation was something the consortium had never seen before. It used Zephyrian phase shift technology to make ships appear and disappear from normal space. "Initiating phase shift," called out the Zephyrian officer at the science station. The Unity shimmered and vanished from the enemy's sensors. Across the battlefield, 35 Earth ships disappeared from sight. The consortium fleet found themselves facing empty space where moments before a defensive fleet had waited. On the consortium flagship, Admiral Prime Korthax stared at his sensors in confusion. Where did they go? Ships cannot simply vanish. His tactical officer, a mechanical being from the Apex Collective, ran diagnostics on their systems, all sensors functioning normally. The primitive vessels have simply disappeared. "Fire on their last known positions," Korthax ordered. Massive energy beams lanced through space, striking nothing but empty darkness. The consortium weapons were powerful enough to destroy mountains, but they could not hit targets that were no longer there. Danny watched from phase space as the enemy wasted their first volley. "Now," he whispered. The Unity materialized directly above a consortium destroyer, so close that their hulls almost touched. The Meridian bioadaptive weapons, guided by human tactics and powered by luminal energy, struck the enemy ship before it could react. The destroyer's perfect armor cracked like an egg. All around the battlefield, Earth ships appeared from nowhere. They struck fast and hard, then vanished again before return fire could reach them. It was like fighting ghosts. "Impossible," Korthax snarled as he watched 3 of his ships take damage from weapons that seemed to come from empty space. "No species has this technology." But Danny knew it was not the technology of one species. It was the combination of 6 different ways of thinking that made it possible. Zephyrian science, human creativity, Kythera coordination, Meridian adaptability, luminal energy control, and Verdani bioengineering, all working together. Lieutenant Amy Collins piloted her fighter squadron through the chaos of battle. Her ship was linked to the Kythera hive mind, allowing her to see the battle from dozens of different viewpoints at once. She could feel the thoughts of her wingmates, both human and alien, as they coordinated their attacks with impossible precision. "Squadron leader, we have a problem," came a voice in her earpiece. It was Lieutenant Pete Hughes, flying beside her in a ship that looked like it was grown rather than built. Amy looked where he was pointing and felt her heart sink. The consortium ships were adapting faster than expected. Their formation was changing, becoming more defensive. "They're learning," she reported to the Unity. "The enemy is adjusting their tactics." Danny received the report and frowned. The consortium's ships were starting to fire at random locations, hoping to hit the phased Earth vessels by chance. Some shots were coming dangerously close. "Admiral Crawford," he called over the communication system. "The enemy is adapting to phantom tactics." "Understood," came the reply. "All ships, switch to swarm formation." This was another tactic that combined multiple alien technologies. The Kythera provided hive mind coordination, while Meridian bioships literally split into smaller vessels. Soon the battlefield was filled with hundreds of small craft, each one linked to the others through quantum communication. Admiral-Prime. Korthax watched in growing frustration as his perfectly organized fleet tried to fight an enemy that refused to behave logically. The small Earthcraft moved like a school of fish, turning and diving as one unit while attacking from every direction. "Sir, we're taking heavy losses," reported his tactical officer. 12 ships destroyed, 18 more damaged. Korthax's cold eyes burned with anger. These primitive humans and their genetic refuse were making his perfect fleet look foolish. "Bring us about. We'll ram their command ship." The massive consortium flagship turned toward the EDS Harmony, Admiral Crawford's command vessel. Its armor was thick enough to survive a collision, and its size would crush the smaller Earth ship. But Admiral Crawford had been expecting this move. She had learned about consortium tactics from the refugees. and she knew they would eventually resort to brute force when their perfect strategies failed. "Now, Commander Parker," she ordered. Commander Janet Parker, aboard the EDS Liberation, had been waiting for this moment. Her ship carried the most experimental weapon in Earth's arsenal, a combination of Verdani biotechnology and luminal energy control that could grow living torpedoes. The torpedoes looked like silver fish as they swam through space toward the consortium flagship. But these were no ordinary weapons. They were alive, able to think and adapt to enemy defenses. Korth quote. Axe watched the approaching projectiles with contempt. "Simple missiles. Our point defense will destroy them easily." But as his defensive weapons fired, the living torpedoes changed. They split apart, reformed, and evolved new defenses with each attack. The consortium's mechanical point defense systems could not adapt fast enough to counter weapons that literally evolved during flight. The first torpedo struck the flagship's bridge. The second hit the engine section. The third found a weak point in the armor that its predecessors had created. Within seconds, the pride of the consortium fleet was crippled. Admiral Prime Korthax found himself in a damaged command center with smoke filling the air and alarms sounding everywhere. Half his crew was dead or injured, and his perfect ship was falling apart around him. "How?" he gasped, staring at the tactical display that showed his fleet in ruins. "How did genetic refuse defeat pure species?" Dr. Sarah Williams, monitoring the battle from Earth's command station, could have answered his question. The consortium's mistake was believing that purity meant strength. They had eliminated diversity from their ranks, making their tactics predictable and their responses limited. Earth S. Fleet used strategies that no single species could have developed. Human unpredictability combined with alien precision. Ancient tactics mixed with advanced technology. The willingness to adapt and change meeting the rigid perfection of the consortium. As the battle turned into a rout, the surviving consortium ships tried to retreat. But the Earth fleet was not done with them yet. Amy Collins led her fighter squadron in pursuit, her ships moving with perfect coordination thanks to their connection to the Kithera hive mind. "This is for every world you destroyed," she whispered as her weapons found their mark. When the battle finally ended, only 3 consortium ships remained intact. They limped away from Earth at maximum speed, carrying news of an impossible defeat back to their masters. Danny stood on the bridge of the Unity, looking out at the debris field that marked the battlefield. Earth had lost only 2 ships, while the consortium advance fleet was completely destroyed. "Status report." Admiral Crawford's voice came over the communication system. "Enemy fleet neutralized," Danny reported. "All Earth ships accounted for. Minimal casualties." There was a pause before Admiral Crawford responded. "Well done, all ships. But remember, this was just their advance force. They'll be back with everything they have." Danny nodded as he looked toward the outer solar system. The consortium's main fleet was still out there somewhere, probably receiving word of their defeat right now. They would not underestimate Earth again. But Earth would be ready. The battle had proven something important. Diversity was not a weakness to be eliminated, but a strength that could overcome any challenge. The galaxy's outcasts had found their home, and they would defend it with everything they had. The real war was just beginning. 2 years after the Great Battle, Admiral Lisa Crawford stood in the command center of Unity Prime, the massive space station that now served as headquarters for the Sol Alliance. Through the viewing windows, she could see ships from dozens of different species docked at the station's many ports. The Shaplings had arrived 6 months ago, their bodies able to take any form they needed. The gas-dwelling Arids came in ships that looked like floating clouds. The Cognitans, artificial beings with minds of pure logic, brought vessels that seemed to think for themselves. Each week brought new refugees fleeing the consortium's campaign of galactic purification. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the outer system," reported Captain Jake Morrison, who now served as her chief of staff. "It's from Admiral Frank Roberts aboard the EDS Tomorrow." Crawford nodded. Frank Roberts commanded the newest and most advanced ship in the Sol Alliance fleet. The Tomorrow was built using technologies from over 30 different species, making it unlike anything else in the galaxy. "Put him through," she ordered. The main screen showed the Bridge of the Tomorrow. Behind Admiral Roberts, Crawford could see crew members from a dozen different species working together at their stations. Humans sat next to beings of crystal, energy, and living metal. "Admiral Crawford," Roberts said with a smile, "you'll want to hear this. We've made contact with the Forgotten Empire." Crawford felt her heart skip a beat. The Forgotten Empire was legendary among the refugee species. They were said to be the first civilization the consortium had tried to destroy, disappearing into deep space thousands of years ago. "Are you certain?" she asked. "Completely certain. They've been hiding in a region of space the consortium considers empty. But they've been watching us, Admiral. They know about our victory over the advance fleet." The screen split to show a new image. An ancient being with silver skin and wise eyes looked out at Crawford. When it spoke, its voice carried the weight of centuries. "I am Elder Zarthon of the Forgotten Empire. For 3,000 years, we have hidden from the consortium's purge. We watched as they destroyed world after world, eliminating any species they deemed impure." Crawford leaned forward. "Elder, we're honored by your contact." "The honor is ours, Admiral Crawford. Your species has done something we thought impossible. You have proven that diversity creates strength, not weakness. You have shown the galaxy another way." Over the following days, more transmissions arrived from across the galaxy. The Lost Collective, survivors of the consortium's earliest campaigns, reached out from their hidden bases. The abandoned worlds, planets that had been declared lifeless after their populations were eliminated, revealed that some had survived in underground cities. Dr. Monica Davis, now Earth's chief scientist, made the crucial discovery while studying consortium battle tactics with data provided by these new allies. She called an emergency meeting in Unity Prime's main conference room. "The consortium's greatest weakness isn't military," she announced to the assembled leaders. "It's evolutionary. They've eliminated diversity so completely that they can't adapt to new situations." President Martha Collins, now serving her second term, looked up from her notes. "What do you mean?" Dr. Davis activated a holographic display showing the consortium's expansion across the galaxy. "Look at this pattern. For 1,000 years, they've conquered species using the exact same methods. Overwhelming force, followed by complete elimination or subjugation. They've never had to change their approach because it always worked." Veltar, the Zephyrian leader, studied the display with his crystal vision. "Until they met us." "Exactly," Dr. Davis continued. "We forced them to face something they'd never encountered. An enemy that gets stronger through cooperation instead of weaker through division. They don't know how to fight us because we're something that shouldn't exist in their worldview." Elder Zarthon's image appeared on another screen. "Dr. Davis speaks truth. The consortium believes that genetic purity equals perfection. They cannot understand how mixing different species could create anything but weakness." Lieutenant Amy Collins, now a full commander, spoke up from her seat. "Intelligence reports suggest their main fleet is over 10,000 ships strong. Even with all our new allies, we're still outnumbered 100 to 1. Admiral Crawford walked to the large viewing window and looked out at the ships of the Sol Alliance. "Numbers aren't everything, Amy. Quality matters more than quantity." Captain Danny Wilson, who had been studying battle reports, looked up from his tablet. "Admiral, I think we need to change our entire strategy. Instead of waiting for them to attack us, we should take the fight to them." "What do you mean?" "The consortium controls thousands of worlds through fear. But fear only works if people believe resistance is hopeless. What if we could show the galaxy that the consortium can be defeated?" Elder Zarthon's ancient face showed the first smile Crawford had seen from him. "Captain Wilson speaks with wisdom. The Forgotten Empire has spent centuries gathering intelligence on consortium worlds. Many populations live under their rule only because they see no alternative." Dr. Lisa Park, who had spent the last 2 years documenting the Alliance's growth, leaned forward with excitement. "A liberation campaign. We don't conquer worlds, we free them." Commander Rick Foster, now head of Alliance Tactical Operations, pulled up star charts on his display. The consortium's empire is huge, but it's built on oppression. If we could liberate even a few worlds, others might find the courage to rebel. Admiral Roberts's voice came over the communication system from the Tomorrow. We've already identified target worlds, species that were conquered recently, before the consortium could complete their cultural elimination programs. They still remember what freedom was like. President Collins stood up, her face showing the determination that had made her a natural leader for the Alliance. Then we're not just defending Earth anymore. We're fighting to free the galaxy. Over the following months, the Sol Alliance launched its campaign of liberation. The Tomorrow led mixed fleets to consortium-controlled worlds, not to conquer, but to offer freedom. The results exceeded everyone's expectations. On Kepler 442, the native Trilarians rose up against their consortium overseers the moment Alliance ships appeared in orbit. The consortium garrison, trained only to fight conventional battles, had no answer for guerrilla warfare supported by orbital allies. At Wolf 359, the artificial intelligence that controlled the planet's factories switched sides when the Cognitans showed them there was an alternative to consortium slavery. Within hours, the planet's entire industrial output was serving the Alliance instead of their former masters. The liberation of Ross 128 became legendary throughout the galaxy. The consortium had declared the world lifeless after destroying its surface cities, but Alliance deep scanners found millions of survivors living in underground complexes. When Alliance bioships brought them to the surface, the planet bloomed with new life in a matter of weeks. Each victory brought new species into the Alliance. Each liberation proved that the consortium's empire was built on lies and fear rather than genuine strength. The galaxy began to remember that diversity had once been celebrated, not eliminated. Admiral Crawford received the final message from the consortium while standing in Unity Prime's command center, surrounded by representatives of over 100 different species. The hologram showed Ambassador General Thexvar, but he looked different now. His perfect confidence was gone, replaced by something that might have been fear. "Admiral Crawford," he said, his voice no longer cold and emotionless. "The consortium offers terms for peace. Cease your attacks on our worlds and we will withdraw from the Sol system." Crawford looked around the room at her allies, humans and aliens who had learned to work together, to celebrate their differences instead of fearing them. She thought about the refugee ships that had arrived years ago, desperate and homeless. She thought about the billions of beings throughout the galaxy who still lived under consortium oppression. "Ambassador General Thexvar," she replied, "the Sol Alliance has only one term for peace: freedom for every species in the galaxy, complete withdrawal of consortium forces from all conquered worlds, and an end to your campaign of genetic purification." Thexvar's image flickered with static. "That is impossible. The consortium has ruled for millennia. We bring order to chaos, purity to genetic corruption." "You bring death to diversity," Crawford replied, "but diversity is what makes life strong. You're about to learn that lesson whether you want to or not." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in silence. Then Elder Zarthon spoke, his ancient voice carrying hope for the first time in centuries. "The galaxy cast us out because we were different, but Earth took us in and showed us that being different was our greatest strength. Now it's time to share that gift with everyone." Admiral Crawford looked out at the stars, where Alliance fleets were already moving toward their next targets. The war was far from over, but she knew they would win. The consortium had power in numbers, but the Alliance had something more important. They had each other, and they had learned that together, they were unstoppable.